Yes. um, I wrote notes because you don't need the ADHD squirrely uh, talk today. So, um, when uh, when they started talking about family stories and what prayer means to you, I just kept getting this feeling like you have something to say. You have something to say, and I was like, nope, nope, I don't. I'm comfortable back in my chair, and I don't. So. But I do. There's been so many things that have happened this summer, and it's just reminded me of realistically the last 5, 6 years of my life, and there's just so much that God has done that I have to say something. Um, I'm going to start off a little morbid. Apologies. My husband is a 911 dispatcher for Portland, and he has been for over a decade, and it's kind of desensitized me to a lot of the things that normally people would find difficult. And I remember driving home from work. I worked in downtown Portland, and I-5 South was at a complete standstill. I got up to where the blockage was, and there were 10 to 12 different police cars, and there was somebody on the bridge trying to jump. And my thought was, my action was, I called my husband and I said, you're gonna have to take another route because there's a jumper on this exit and it's really gonna cramp your commute. And then I got off the phone and was like, what a horrible thing for my brain to default to. Like, that compassion was gone. It was someone's worst day of their life, and I reduced it to an inconvenience in my husband's commute. And I started praying. I was like, God, give me compassion. Like, this is terrible. Like, just give me compassion for other people, because I've never been in that kind of a crisis. I don't know. But what a horrible thing for me to say, just take a different route because of this inconvenience. And over the years, God has given me many things that have given me compassion in my life. One was postpartum depression. And if any women in here have ever dealt with that, any husbands, dads have dealt with, spouses with that, it certainly opens your eyes a little bit to how other people handle things. The other is a special needs child. And it's changed the way I think. It's changed the way I advocate. It's changed the way I view the needs of other people. And I remember, I never used to cry until I had kids either, and then, your emotions are out of whack. I remember having a particularly difficult day after we just got some assessment results. And I was wallowing, quite frankly, and I remember just, wallowing. And I heard the voice of God so clear just say, He is happy and healthy. Is that not what you prayed for? Like, is He not that? You prayed for happy and healthy. And I was like, what? Where did that voice come from? And then it just echoed and said, is He not that? I prayed for happy and healthy. And as many of you know my children, William is the epitome of happy and healthy, right? He is the epitome of that. And he's growing every day, but he's teaching me how to be more compassionate for other people. And it's helped me show up for my friends, show up for my family. And do I think that God has put these big, big things and big people in my life to help me from a moment of weakness? Possibly. But He's definitely answered that prayer in a very not conventional way, let's be honest. Like, He gave me children to answer a prayer for compassion. That is the path. And let me tell you, we didn't plan on having children. So it was truly God's intervention He gave me twins, yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We don't need to go there. I've decided to keep them, though. They're cute. So over the years, He's shown up in different ways. I had an instance last year where I was struggling in an extremely toxic work environment I had for years. And I was to the point where I couldn't be there anymore. And I'd been applying for jobs, and I'd been praying and praying and praying, and I had over 100 applications, and everything was denied. And I remember talking to a few people about it, and then I heard this snippet of a podcast that showed up on like an Instagram feed or something. And they were talking about faith and how the opposite of faith, when you think of that, what do you think of? Like being an atheist, not having faith? But this podcast challenged it, and they said the opposite of faith is force. And so when we pray for something, and then we try to force our will into it, that's the opposite of faith. And it really changed the way I was dealing with this job situation. And so I just took a step back, and I could probably spend an hour telling you about all the things that God did in that situation, but I'm gonna tell you right now, like, he redeemed every single thing. He put me in exactly the spot I need to be. He took me out of that situation, and all it took was for me to hear the wisdom from other people, like Ruth and her mom, and Kyle, and this random podcast to say, like, sit down, lady, God is working, and just allow him to have the space to do it. And he did, and he really did. I've also been praying about a very close family member who is not a Christian, not a believer. Their beliefs are a little up in the air. And their answer was, I've never had a big experience like you to prove that God is real or that someone's there. And so I've been just praying, like, God, slap this person over the head with the biggest gesture you can so that they know. And that hasn't been happening. It really hasn't. So then I just started praying, like, maybe that's not how God operates. And maybe I should not be praying what I want to happen. And so I changed my prayers. And I changed my prayers to, when you choose to show yourself in my life, do it so that I can talk to this person and there's nothing in there that can be discounted with circumstance, with science, with anything, with, well, the weather, well, this, anything. And so I've just been praying, let every little thing, let things that happen in my life that are a clear work from you be something that I can talk about, that this person can see that you are working and it's not a matter of circumstance or luck. And so this summer, I had ankle reconstruction surgery. I got some beautiful hardware, but it is a boot. It is not a cast, it is not a splint, and I am up walking. I had surgery July 1st. They told me I'd be in a cast for 10 weeks, and I wouldn't be able to start walking until my physical therapy started in mid-September, which reminds me I need to call my physical therapist. Ruth, you want to text me that? Thank you. I need to get that on the schedule. I will tell you, it was extremely painful. The first few days were extremely painful. My husband took the kids out, and it was just me at home. But I had my first post-op appointment July 11th, so 10 days after surgery. At that point, I was off all pain medication, nothing. I wasn't walking, no. But I had been just following his instructions and just, you know what, I have to back up. I was really anxious going into this surgery, and I was just praying, like, I think it was Kyle had just talked about, like, one of his Sunday sermons, like, specific prayers. Don't leave, if you need things, like, be specific, because sometimes we're like, God, bless this family, and, like, some blessing happens and you don't know what it is, right? And people don't necessarily always attribute that. And so I was trying to be specific. I was like, I am anxious. God, please just let this morning be calm. Let my surgeon feel at ease and the best of his skill, ability. Like, I just want this to be as smooth as possible, as pain-free as possible. And, like, God, just let this morning go well and let me not be anxious. So I get there, and they immediately, like, I'm going back, and I was like, my support person's coming with me, my husband's coming with me, and she goes, oh, no, he's not. So he had to stay out, like, and they just brought me back, got me ready, and I was super anxious. I don't do well with needles. I could go on. And then my surgeon walks in, and he just said, hey, how are you doing? And I was like, not great, as I'm, like, twitching, you know, because I'm anxious. And he goes, Well, I just want you to know that we're ahead of schedule today. The whole team is relaxed. They're sitting back having a coffee break. We are all set up. We are prepared for you, and we are just waiting on you. It's just so calm and so relaxed back there, and we're early. So you just let me know when you're ready, and we'll be here for you. It's just calm. And I was like, what? This is a surgeon who books out 7 months in advance, and they fill every single slot for it. And he personally came back to just be like, hey, we're just sipping coffee, we're calm, we're ready for you. And I was like, thank God. Like, just that little thing of knowing my surgical team was just calm. And there was no other patients in there. There was nobody else. Like, I was the only patient, and they were all just waiting for me and making sure that I was ready and prepared. Yep. And then I get to my post-op appointment. And so on the 10th of July, and 11th, 10 days later, and they take my splint off, clean it all up. The surgeon walks into the room, and the nurse had said, like, as she's taking the splint off, she goes, you'll be in a cast, or you'll have the stitches for another 3 weeks. You'll be in another cast, and then another cast, and, you know, and it'll be middle of September, and she's talking about it, and then the surgeon walks in, and his jaw drops. And he goes, I don't know what you're doing, but the swelling is gone. Your incision has completely healed. You're ahead of schedule on everything. I'm taking your stitches out today. This doesn't make sense. So he took my stitches out, which are like this big. It's a huge incision. He took them out 10 days after surgery because it was healed. Yep. My surgeon, who has spent more years in school than any of us, probably, and he had no answers, no medical answers. Went back to my next one right before we went to Wainema, and he took off. They took, was I in my cast? Oh, I was still. They told me I could have my cast on or taken off the week we were in Wainema, so I kept it because I wasn't coming back into town for that. But he said, I'll be ready to come out of my cast at that point, which was like 6 weeks early. And so I had another follow-up appointment right after we got back, and they took my cast off. This was like last week. I think, yeah, like last week, the 6th or 7th or something. He took my cast off, and they said, like, I'll be in a walking boot. That's fine. So we're all good. And then I actually went back last week on Wednesday. I don't know, my days are melting together. And again, the surgeon came in and his jaw dropped. I was supposed to have x-rays, a bunch of follow-up tests, and he goes, you don't need any of that. He did a whole bunch of movement tests and said, you're completely healed. You don't need x-rays, you don't need anything. He goes, you will not need another cast. You can start walking next, I mean, you should be walking right now, but you can start walking in just an ankle brace next week. And he goes, I fully anticipate you coming in next month with 0 support, nothing. And like 6, 7 weeks ahead of schedule, my surgeon, again, was saying, there's no explanation for this because you're just following standard protocol, and this should not be like that. The swelling, I still have a little bit, for the most part, like it's gone. My joints, my ligaments are healed, that they cut through are healed. The stitches are all healed, and I am up and walking around weeks early, and I was able to use that and tell this family member, like, I know we have some different views, but I have to tell you this because there's no explanation besides divine healing and an answer to prayer. Because there's just no way. Like, if you have a medical team that can't come up with an answer, how can this family member who's not a doctor come up with some what if, you know? And so some things that I have learned over the last few years is, one, the opposite of faith is force. I have to remember to give God the space to work when I'm asking him for things. Or when I just have to give him the space to work. And 2, not to put God in a box. The way that he chooses to work and show up might not be the same way that I would want him to or ask him to, but he knows what's best for us, and he is working. He knows what's best for me, and he has done more than what I ever could comprehend. And then the last one I have two. Be in tune with the voice of God so that when he speaks, you know that it's him talking. When I was wallowing, and God literally, like a lightning bolt, said, you prayed for happy and healthy. Is he not that? And it took me a second, and God literally said, is he not that? And punctuated everything. And I just had to go, that's exactly what he is. Thank you. You answered my prayer. And he's more than what I could have ever asked for. And the only way to be in tune with the voice of God is to speak to him more and to listen more and be open for that. And also, when you hear the voice, don't be afraid of responding. And don't let it take you, as long as it takes me, quite frankly, because I'm that stubborn goat that they talk about. And when you hear God talking to you, it might not necessarily be an answer to your prayer. You might be an answer to someone else's prayer that he has put you in that place to be the answer for. And I could go on about the situations where that's happened to, but I'm not going to because I think I'm over my time anyways. But God has shown up in so many ways, whether I've prayed for it, whether I have not prayed for it, whether I've prayed stupid, vague things and he's showed up in really weird ways. It's just showed me that he is bigger than any situation that I have comprehended or not, and he is there, and he is waiting, and he is wanting to respond. So just keep praying.